Are you a geek? Maybe people think you are a know-it-all. You're arrogant. You probably think being part of the Mensa club makes you special. If those are some of the traits you do showcase, you might be first logic. So 1L is one of the most brutal positions in typology. And if anything, it is the most brutal position. At some point, you probably argued with someone who's 1L. You left the conversation wondering what happened to your psyche. Why are you so upset? Why are you so angry? You feel like your blood's boiling, you are about to have a stroke, you're about to collapse. That's the normal feeling people get when trying to argue with 1L individual. It's a very dogmatic placement. It's inflexible, it's in overabundance, it's hyper confident in its own kind of right, in its own knowledge, in its own answers. So as you can see, it probably makes it difficult, right? Especially in typology. Because in many ways, typology is subjective, right? You have this opinion, I might have this opinion. Not always, but often it is. So you get 1L who will think they're right. And that's the dogmatism that is there. But in general, 1L people have a great ability to see many million details and create a coherent, logical map out of something. So again, it's a person who takes their time to understand a subject. When they know something, you can guarantee that they've looked into it. They geeked over it. I've argued with 1L people, and sometimes I'm arguing about it, but they have an advantage. They geeked over the books. I haven't even touched them, for example. I'm in a losing position. If they know something, they'll talk about it. If they lack knowledge on a topic, they're going to be silent. So it's not just a person who wants to talk all the time in logic and process logic. They're not the 2L you see in typology constantly wants to exchange logical ideas. Let's just talk about it all the time. They kind of want to give you their piece. They want to give you their opinion, and that's kind of it, right? And if there is some kind of attempt on changing their opinion, they might be very stubborn. It might be difficult for them to adapt. And in the end, I think oftentimes best way to convince 1L individual, this video should probably be just like how to deal with 1L people, but it's let them think on their own. Don't fight them. Don't try to convince them. The more you push, when they feel like you're pushing them in the logical sphere, they will double down. And even if you are correct, it doesn't matter. Their answer is the true answer. They know the truth here, right? So they can double down, and that's the problem with 1L individuals, especially combined with 3V. With 2V, there is more of that flexibility. Okay, let's listen to people. Because, trying to gather knowledge, trying to be the source of knowledge for other people for the common good. So there's more flexibility. With 1L and 3V, not so much. So the best way to deal with them is give them space. Like, okay, yeah. Don't try to push your agenda. Just ask questions. Find out. Okay. And suggest some things. And if you can see, they might change their mind, but it's going to happen on their own. They will read on it. They'll think about it. And maybe later come to you, listen, I changed my mind on that. And that's them. So you just need to, don't push them. I've tried that. Again, force, and it's not going to work. They'll double down. Discussing things in circles is not the point. Often prone to monologues. So either interesting ones where you can learn, right? It makes for a good teacher. You are on the scene and you're explaining. You're giving people the truth. You're giving the people the information that you believe is correct. Great teacher. But it's a monologue. It's best in a monologue. Now, I would say the best way to kind of see this lack of process orientation is if I use an example. So let's say there is a geek, and this geek writes a huge analysis. It's a huge analysis, very detailed analysis. He thought about everything, every small detail. He thought about how you're going to counter it. He understood it perfectly, right? Again, very high confidence in logical abilities and logical prowess. So the way it will manifest as a result orientation is that instead of trying to argue with everyone, responding to them, you're wrong, and trying to explain things over and over in different ways to kind of engage in the process of logical discussion, this person might just be like, rehearse the same point they did. Well, if you read what I wrote, you'd know it's true. If you read what I wrote, you wouldn't be wrong. Not changing the approach. Often seemingly not listening to the other individual. That's At its worst, that's how it can be. They're not listening to you. They know that's the truth. They gave you the answer. That's the answer. So that's it. Many of them hate having to explain themselves and having to constantly go in logical circles. They want to kind of give you the answer and they want you to digest it. That's it. Let's move on forward. Now, compared to 2L, which kind of just wants to hear different opinions for the sake of opinions. 1L is focused on searching for the truth. A discussion where the pursuit of truth is not the main theme seems like a pointless discussion. If we are not here to discover what's correct or what is the truth, what's the point? 2L, on the other hand, is much more flexible. Let's process the logic. Let's troll people with logic. Let's do it for fun. Let's poke them. 1L, it's much more serious, much more grounded in that way. We are here to discover the truth. What is the right answer? And then an individual who spends a lot of time thinking about stuff. A person who prides themselves in their ability to think. 1L and 3L. It's often confused, right? I think it can be confused. Both are aggressive placements. So in a way, I can see why some people might be confused. And if you combine like 1V and 3L, maybe that volition is going to give more of that adamant and aggressive outlook. The difference is that the 1L is an uber geek. The 3L often has sloppy logic. So they might assume they're correct. They might kind of have a certain opinion, but they are much more easily swayed. They're much more easily swayed than the 1L. There is more of an inherent lack of confidence in logic. It might not be conscious, but the point is that they want to have feedback often from other people. Okay, is this true? Well, what do you think about that? 1L doesn't do that. 1L doesn't want to go around and reaffirm their logical beliefs or their logical conclusions. Like, what do you think about that? That's engaging with the other. That's trying to get input. That's not a result orientation. And that's not overabundance with confidence. So that's the biggest difference. 1L doesn't. 1L will come to its conclusion on its own. Even if he discusses it with you and you give them certain ideas in a debate, at the end, the whole judgment, the whole conclusion belongs to the 1L individual. That's the biggest difference. With the 3L, there's a weird imbalance of pushiness and maybe even, again, this is the truth and that's the only way, with sloppiness. So either pushy or very open-minded, too open-minded. It's like inability to find balance with 3L. It's often way more easily brainwashed. It's way more easily brainwashed by logic than 1L is. You can kind of twist and turn 3L, in my opinion, to your desires. If you kind of have that, again, intellectual dominance, right? If you're better at logic, you can do that with 3L. With 1L, it's not going to budge. Just for them, it's inherent. They know. Same like first volition. They know what they want. They'll get it, right? If I want something, whatever it is, they feel the right to it. And there's no discussions, there's no nothing, there's no debate because it's inherent. Same thing here. Dissecting emotions, like 1L and 2E, dissecting emotions, right? Let me understand this emotion. How do I feel? Why do I feel this way? So it's breaking things down in this more methodical and unemotional and logical fashion, which can be seen in SP6s, for example. Or, I think SX5s, right? So that still is present. So that's it for today. If you guys have any questions regarding first L, let me know down below. I'm sure at some point, listen, there will be some 1L geek who's going to tell you everything. That's how it always goes. 1L people dominate typology.